What is up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Stephanie Ellsperman, and it's been a hot minute. What's going on? I am so excited to be here with you and that you have chosen to spend your time and your energy listening to these words because I promise you they are going to be so worth it. If you are someone who feels like you have a multitude of facets to yourself, whether you're in business or not, I'm speaking to you. If you feel like you have always had multiple passions, you want to have multiple businesses, you want to have multiple sides of yourself expressed within your life, but you feel like everyone's asking you to choose one, I'm going to welcome you into your next season, which is expanding your capacity to be the woman who has it all. I see this so common. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in countless clients where I feel like there is a new wave. And especially if you've been in business and you've been told, niche down, do one thing, become an expert and a specialist. That is incredibly helpful and important. There's a time and place for it. But what I see so often happen is that you hear that, and then sometimes we take it very literally and we put ourselves into a box of like, oh, I can only be this and only do this. And when I show up on social media, I can only share this side of myself versus completely letting yourself out of a box and kicking down those walls. As my incredible community manager, Bianca, says, she's painted this so beautifully as a visual of like kicking down those walls of that box and letting yourself take up space as the woman who has it all, not the woman who does it all. And it's very different. And I talk about that in this podcast. We don't want to come at this from the realm of burnout and become the woman who does it all, but the woman who has it all. And then to create a brand that reflects that as well, that not only encompasses all facets of you and really feels like it's a representation of you and allows for your creativity and multiple ventures, but also has a clear starting point for creating income. I think sometimes what happens is when you hear like, oh, yes, I get to include all sides of myself in my life and also in my business. Amazing. What can happen is your message will get watered down and there won't be a clear starting point. So you're like, okay, amazing. Well, now I can have space for all these different ideas. And then you can get a little bit lost in the sauce. It takes a lot of clarity to then find the starting point from that place that you can actually generate income to create the brand that allows you to house all these sides of yourselves. Because we can't necessarily do that if there's $0 that are being generated. So all of that to say, I hope you enjoy this podcast episode. It is a quick little behind the scenes snippet of what it's like to actually coach with me, specifically on Slack. I love my calls with clients, but usually, especially if you are in a one-on-one package with me, you'll have Slack access. And sometimes that is where the best magic happens because we're in this fun little back and forth sort of space. And while I love talking to you guys on the podcast, there is nothing that stands in for that back and forth of like me responding to a client's questions or reflection and then us kind of going at it. So I actually took voice notes from my office hours in Slack with a client where we were going back and forth. The client is not included in this, so it still remains anonymous, but you'll hear my side of things. So if there's any points that kind of like jump around, that's what's going on. But you'll hear just the raw and really honest version of this, not scripted, not with any sort of agenda, just my honest and raw feedback, and to give you a little bit of glimpse and to feel that energy of the back and forth, which I think is just fun, especially in this podcast realm. So enjoy it. I hope that something deeply resonates with you from this. And if you find yourself in the place where you're like, oh, Steph, I want that. Like, I want that back and forth. I want the support to just absolutely take off into 2025 and make it the most banging year yet, whether that is in creating a magnetic personal brand or whether that is in your personal life and really aligning your life to your purpose and creating a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out and getting clear on that direction for you moving forward. You can find the link to join our 2025 waitlist in the show notes below. You're welcome to hop on that and we'll make some magic in 2025. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast episode and I can't wait to see you there. Mwah! Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. You do not need to put yourself in a box. You get to be all of these things. And what's so interesting is that every single one of these, I'm like, yes, I see her in this. And I hope that you see yourself within it. Like podcast hosting, yes, please. Mentorship, yes, please. Photography, videography, creative direction, visuals, production, all of it is like, yes, you are just this creative soul who is here to create a multitude of avenues and have a multitude of facets to yourself throughout your lifetime. And if there's any part of you that's felt constricted in your content creation, I want you to post anything that you feel like, oh no, I couldn't post that because that's not a part of my business or something like that. Any part of your brain that's like, oh no, I couldn't do that. That's what I want you to post, because the reality is you get to be all of these things. I see you as all of these things. It is in the formation, it's in process. And now it's like, okay, so where's your starting point? Where is the starting point? Because what I want you to start to think with is, let's just isolate stories for a second, bringing all of these aspects of yourselves into stories as if you were a content creator who just so happens to have a product, which is a course, a program, social media management, etc. Bringing this into your day-to-day stories. That's the easiest place to start. Bringing in the woman who does it all, the woman who hops around the city, the woman who then gets to sit down and do her work for her clients, the woman who then gets to go out and go to a dance class. All of these sides of yourself, you get to be the woman who does it all. And that, I think, is such a huge part of business that isn't necessarily talked about enough. Because we talk about niching, which niching does have its point, because then we bring it into our starting point. Also, that goes for your post as well. I know I said isolate stories, but it goes for your post as well. Bring in those sides of yourself. If you were to, for example, post every single day to get people familiar with seeing your face, 3 of those can be personal, 4 of them can be business. It can be like this combination that gets to be fluid, where it doesn't necessarily have to be like every single day, this is what I'm posting for my business, if that feels stifling for you, because we want your creativity to be let out of the box, baby. Okay, so then on the flip side, then it comes our starting point. Once you give yourself permission, you get to be all of these things, especially when we look at like the financial side and generating income. To be able to create this entire creative house, it's where's the path of least resistance to be able to create that income? That's your starting point, right? So think of what you're doing, for example, with as that starting point to create everything else, but that doesn't mean that your content has to be isolated to just that. Let me know how this feels. I want you to think about this as if you are creating a company, or for you, a creative house, versus just, how am I going to make the next buck from this next offer? How would you move if you knew that you were creating a creative house? And then, of course, yes, we do want things that generate income, because that creates the funding to actually bring this to fruition. Think long term, right? Sometimes long term gets overwhelming. But if we think in the broad sense of, if you were creating a creative house, like, how would you move? That's what I want you to create. Not your next 10K month or your next 5 clients right away. Those are amazing quick wins, but anyone can actually do that. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're setting yourself up for longevity. And for some people who are more creative like yourself, it's more helpful to be like, what is the whole brand vibe that I'm creating? But then we do have to take it micro into the starting point to be able to create that income. And I think you are exactly right when you said I'm creating resistance for myself. Just saying. Yeah, you are. Because there is a path of least resistance. It's doing what you do, but just amplifying it and scaling it. But sit with it. Sit with it, because it's got to land for you. Okay. And second, so you know how you said, yes, like being the woman who does it all, and then not fully always seeing yourself as that, or at least that's my assumption that I made from what you said. Here's what's so interesting is, in my eyes, you are, because you do so many different things. However, you can own that. You can just own that and be like, yes, I am the woman who has it all. Or we can take another route. And this can also be a little spark of fun to add more into your life, not from the space of needing to overload ourselves to outrun where we are, not from the space of needing to prove anything, not from the space of anything that will lead us to burnout, but from the space of, I am expanding my capacity to hold more within my life. And every single thing that I add, I'm going to see how it fits. If it feels good, amazing, it expands my creativity. If it doesn't, okay, cool, we're not doing that again. And just being like, can I expand my capacity to hold more? Because here's what happens sometimes with high performers, I've noticed. Take it or leave it if this resonates. Sometimes, especially if we've been through a cycle of burnout before, we will become very protective over our own time and energy, which is amazing because it helps us recover from said burnout. But then we get to this place where we don't always trust ourselves to be able to handle a lot all at once. We're like, oh my God, I'm handling a lot. And automatically our body goes into this freak out danger mode. Like, oh my God, this feels like burnout again. And it's not actually. They're all creative opportunities. They're all things that you actually love, but then your body and your mind create a problem out of something that's actually a benefit. And so sometimes what happens, and I'm just going to plant the seed, you don't have to get behind it just yet. Sometimes what can happen is we want to be in a season of expanding our capacity to hold more. Because the reality is, most of the time, it is not necessarily the very thing that drains our energy or makes us feel burnt out or tired or overstretched. It's what we think about it and the mindset that we bring to it. and that energy that we bring to it, right? Think about it. If I had a to-do list in front of me for a very, very simple example, and there's one way of going through the to-do list, which is chop wood, carry water. Just do the very next thing, the very next thing, the very next thing. It's very neutral. There's another way of going through the to-do list. You're like, oh my God, I've got so many things to do. And your shoulders are tense and your heart's racing and you get amped on caffeine and you do all the things and it's like stressful. Still the same to-do list, different energies. Also, different level of energy by the end of the day. Same is true with expanding our capacity for more community, more friends, more activities, more extracurriculars, more places to go. Even if that just means going for a walk, like getting out in the world, whatever it is, seeing a new place, expanding our capacity to hold more and seeing what that feels like to almost retrain your body. I can hold this, like I'm good. Totally good. This actually is sparking my creativity. So a fun little thing to play with. I'm just going to plant that seed. I hope you have a beautiful evening. I'll talk to you soon. Mwah. Also, if you're like, Steph, I do not want more right now, A-okay, then leave it. But if something from that resonates, dare I say we planted a seed and we'll see what happens. The last thing I will say, because then I got to go to that gym, is before you even add anything in, I want you to write down and reflect. What are the incredible, beautiful things that are in your life right now that you once maybe dreamt of having, or maybe the things that you've always had, but you never realized how beautiful they actually are? That's the starting place, is when you can recognize with full and deep, juicy gratitude in your heart, like, oh my gosh, wait, I do have it all. I do have everything that I once dreamt of. Of course, there's always more, but let me just take in the fullness of gratitude for my life right now as if I have arrived, not needing to be anyplace else, not needing to be 10 steps ahead, but in your life right now. That is the most beautiful, juiciest place to be. Like, oh, I feel it in my bones. Like that fullness of fulfillment that comes from, yes, I love it here. I love it here. All right, my loves, that is the podcast episode that we have for you. I hope that you absolutely enjoyed it and something resonated so deeply within your heart and gave you just a little bit of nugget to go forth into your day and to create a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out, and create a business that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out as well. And if something resonated with you, I always love to hear your reflections. So send me a DM on Instagram at Stephanie Elsperman, or better yet, share it to your stories. Share the love, spread the love, allow somebody else to get to discover this message and let it sink in for them. And you might not even know that there's someone who needs it. And with that said, I love you all, and I will see you on the next episode. Mwah!